Hello and welcome to the One Life Church devotional series. We cover the entire Bible in 20 months. Well, today's chapters are Psalms 66 and 67. And in these Psalms, we see the wrestling of man with God. And so, verse 5 of 66 says, "Come and see what God has done." Then the psalmist gives a bit of a summary of the children of Israel's wrestling with God. He says, He turned the sea into dry land and we passed through the waters on foot. So he says, remember, God delivered us from slavery. But he says, before he did that, he allowed us to be refined like silver. He laid burdens on our backs. And verse 12 says, we went through the fire and we went through the water, but you brought us to a place of abundance. And then the psalmist says, I will come to your temple with burnt offerings and sacrifices, verse 15 says. If I had cherished sin in my heart, the Lord would not have listened, is what he says. So he sums up the reason for him going to the temple, for bringing his offerings, for bringing the sacrifices, because of this understanding of sin. He said, if I had cherished sin in my heart, the Lord would not have listened to me. And then he says very gratefully at the end, praise be to God who has not rejected my prayer. He's withheld his love from me. And so what we see here is the means that God gave Old Testament Christians to come before him and to pray. That obviously, they go through testing, they go through trials, they sifted. But what they needed to do was go into his presence, to bring an offering, to lay sacrifices before him, to make themselves acceptable to God. Because he says, because sin in my heart, that's a problem. God wouldn't accept my prayers if there was sin in my heart. Now this is the huge relief that we have through the coming of Jesus. He was the sacrifice. He was the offering. And as we put our trust in him, that sin is dealt with. So we can rush into his presence and we can say like David, praise be to God who has not rejected my prayer or withheld his love from me. Why hasn't he? Because his son's sacrifice was sufficient. His son's offering was sufficient. And as we put our trust in him and hide in Jesus, God looks at us, and so we can rush to him in our prayer, knowing we accept it, knowing we listen to, knowing he's on our side. That's Psalm 66. Now, Psalm 67 starts like this. May God be gracious to us and bless us and make his face to shine upon us. Now, those of you who've been reading with me will recognize that verse came out of Deuteronomy, didn't it? It was Aaron's prayer. Aaron, the great priest, prayed this in Numbers 6:24. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. And so the psalmist sort of snatches a bit out of that priestly prayer and says, this is my blessing over you. We as priests of God, because we're all kingdom priests now, aren't we? We don't have to have an Aaron. We don't have to have a high priest. We have one who is Jesus. And so we are a royal priesthood, Peter says. And so here we are. We can pray this prayer over our children, over our churches, over our businesses. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you. When someone's shining on you, he's approving of you and be gracious to you. In other words, not deal with you like you deserve. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you. In other words, he brings to bear his glory to you and give you peace. Now remember, we've spoken about peace that sustains us, that holds us, that keeps us together. And so the psalmist is sort of catching on some of that priestly prayer. Maybe he saw himself as a priest. But you and I are priests. We can pray these priestly prayers. And it ends by saying this, may God bless us still, so that all the ends of the earth fear him. The heart of the psalmist was, when we're walking right with God, the world sees, the world is attracted to God, and the world will turn to God. God bless you.